Well, I just got done watching the series premiere of Fox's Gotham, which is the newest piece of Batman media going around, except it doesn't actually have Batman in it. Now, I feel I should start this off by informing the viewers that, to be honest, this was not actually one of the shows I was really looking forward to this fall. I didn't really think it looked like a bad show. I just wasn't entirely on board with the concept. Because in my opinion, the Batman and his mythos, his characters have been done so many times and they have become such a saturated group of characters and locations in recent years that I when I saw this, I just said to myself, really another one? Because we have countless TV shows, movies, video games that have done these characters well and not so well. So when I heard that they were making a new TV show, I was not at all on board. And the fact that it was going to take place before, in my opinion, the more interesting stuff happened in Gotham, i.e., when Batman showed up, then I was even more uninterested. I just said, okay, well, this could very well be just another police procedural, which again is a very saturated genre on TV. I mean, you really have to do something new in order to really sell people on a new one because there's just so many of them. But like I said, from what I've seen or from what I saw prior to this, I didn't really think it looked like a bad show. Bruno Heller created it, and Bruno Heller, as you know, or as some of you might not know, was responsible for TV shows like Rome. So, like I said, I didn't really think it looked poorly made or anything, or to a certain extent even poorly conceived. I just again wasn't really on board with the idea and the concept. But after having seen the pilot episode, the premiere, I have to say I admit that the show is very good. I have to admit that it's a very well made show. There are problems, a few glaring problems, some of which I think can be attributed to it being the first episode, some of which I think they will have to fix sometime along the line. In fact, the show opens with Bruce Wayne's parents getting gunned down, and and the show revolves around a young Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon, who, for those who don't know, will eventually become Batman's greatest ally on the side of the law enforcement, the Gotham City law enforcement. He will eventually become Commissioner Gordon, but now he's just Detective Jim Gordon. Okay, and he's pretty much the only good cop in the city. I mean, he's a fresh. He used to be a beat cop, but now he's been promoted to detective, and he is one of the most morally righteous cops in Gotham City. Gotham City, as you know, being a very corrupt place where the police are in league with the mob. I mean, there are just gray areas of morality all over the place. Not a nice city. And Gordon, like I said, has been promoted to detective. He's partnered with Harvey Bullock, the hot-headed and sardonic Harvey Bullock. And basically, this whole episode revolves around them trying to find the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents. And along the way, Gordon learns just how deeply the relationship and the corruption goes in the GCPD in relation to the mob, how bad of a place Gotham can be, how out of his depth he is, and you know how poss- pardon me, possibly establish some future relationships throughout the show. Now, first of all, I think the acting is very good. Ben McKenzie, at least thus far, makes for a pretty convincing Jim Gordon, at least in his younger days. He doesn't sport the chevron mustache. Maybe he'll grow into it, but he doesn't have the big Tom Selleck mustache that you would expect Jim Gordon to have. But again, it's his younger days. And I think I said before, back when I was talking about the show during Comic Con, I think I said that he looks like Russell Crowe from L.A. Confidential. Yeah, he has a great deal more morality than Russell Crowe in L.A. Confidential, but I digress. He does a pretty good job, and considering this is one of those standard good guy characters, or at least it can be if given to not a very good screenwriter, I think the fact that they are able to make Gordon interesting in this show and make him intense while not necessarily having him be bland, I think part of that success can be attributed to the acting, and part of that can be attributed to the script. I think both of them mesh pretty well. And Donald Logue plays Harvey Bullock. Now, Donald Logue, considering earlier this year I saw him get his head bashed in on Vikings, he looks pretty good. He pretty much feels very natural in the role of Harvey Bullock. I was actually pretty impressed. Granted, my exposure to Harvey Bullock, the character, has been pretty limited. I mean, really, the depths of my familiarity with the character only extend to Batman the Animated Series, where he was basically this big Danny DeVito looking guy. So I was open to a different interpretation of Harvey Bullock, and for the most part, Donald Logue gives us that. He's noticeably more intense. He's very, like I said, sardonic. And one thing I have to give this show, and this kind of has to do with the script, but again, I also think that some of it has to do with Logue's performance. This could have easily been a character who is just your standard jerk, who is just your standard I don't want to say Biff Tannen type guy, but I'm thinking of Batman Year One and the guy that Gordon was initially partnered with. I forget his name, but Batman Year One, he was just this he was like, yeah, you'll learn the rules pretty quick, Jimmy. But Donald Logue and his portrayal of Harvey Bullock, you can tell that he actually might have a soft spot for Gordon. He thinks that Gordon's a nice guy. He actually has a little bit more depth to him than you would think, considering how tied up he is with the mob and how accepting he is of the way things work in Gotham. However, one glaring problem I found with this episode is some of it feels a little rushed in the middle. I think it would have benefited this to be a 90-minute pilot instead of or a 70-minute pilot instead of a 40-minute pilot. I think they would have been able to take a little bit more time with some of the story, because around the middle of the story, Gordon basically goes solo and goes on this little private hunt for Bruce Wayne's parents' killer, the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents. Excuse me, and it's just this really rapid fire series of scenes, and I'm just thinking, the pacing of this show has been pretty good up to this point, and now they're all of a sudden rushing it, and then it slows down again for the climax. So yeah, I think some of that can be attributed to the format, I know, but I think there was a little bit of an inconsistent pace toward the 2/3 mark, and also there are too many villains. I'm sorry, there are too many nods and references to Batman in this first episode, and this is one of the things I was talking about. This could very well change, but I've counted several villains or other characters in this episode alone. And I understand it's in the Batman mythos. You're going to have these characters along the line, but feed them to us gradually, and don't have your show become full of gimmicks of like, oh, this week we're tackling this villain, and now we have this villain, blah blah blah. Because I think you take away what you want this show to really stand out as having. I mean, there was a teenage Catwoman who did nothing. I mean, she was just kind of there. Cameron something. Cameron Bacondova. I think that's how you say her name. But I haven't seen her in anything before, but I don't know if she's an athlete, but she actually looked really natural doing a lot of the feline-esque movements that Catwoman is known for. But again, she didn't really do anything. I don't even think she had a line. Actually, she did have one line. She talked to her cat, but that's beside the point. She didn't do anything narratively. She again was just kind of there. There was her. There was the Penguin. There was a brief Riddler scene. There was Poison Ivy, which they changed her name. She's not Pamela Isley. She's Ivy Pepper, and she's a kid in this. 4 or 5 villains that you have in this show in the first episode, and I think since a large part of your audience is going to be Batman fans or people who are at least mildly familiar with the Batman mythos, I think it's going to be a little distracting for people watching And and again, what the show is trying to do is stand on its own. What the show is trying to do is craft this police show in the Batman mythos without necessarily making it a Batman show. And if you include all of these villains, I think, like I said, you somewhat sabotage that or undermine that. Now, but overall, I thought the show was pretty interesting. I thought it did a good job of setting up a lot of the gray areas in morality that we all know Batman to have, or Batman's characters to have. I really like the look of Gotham. In terms of the look, it looks like a cross between the Tim Burton Gotham City and the Christopher Nolan Gotham City. It's based in this very hyper reality. I mean, it's significantly. It looks from a look standpoint and from a cinematography standpoint, I really like it because it looks like a more stylized version of your typical city, of this very grungy city. It looks. I mean, the color scheme. I don't want to say it's all black and gray because there is a pretty strong sense of color in this episode. When the colors pop, they really pop, especially in Fish Mooney's place, and even the quote unquote non-colors like the black and the gray and the white, even they pop. So I like this show's color scheme. I like this show's style. I like so far I like the characters okay. The kid who plays Bruce Wayne is not the best actor. I'm sorry. He's not awful, but he's not very good, or at least not up to this point. So yeah, at this point, I'm willing to stick with it and see where it goes. Whether or not this will truly stand as something unique, I think remains to be seen. But for now, it has piqued my interest, and I admit maybe I was a little too quick to judge this show. Now that I've actually seen the initial execution of it, I think there is promise. Is it necessarily for everyone? No. Does it have problems? Yeah, but I think as the show goes on, we can iron out those problems and potentially have this be a very compelling show. I mean, I think so far it has a solid foundation. So, yeah, that's about all I got for the series premiere of Gotham. Pleasant surprise, honestly.